Messing with the camera per usual. Hello, hello. Back in the Brooklyn kitchen. I'm JulieAnn. This is Baking with Friends. I've got Alex joining me today. And let's see. On hopefully no technical difficulties. And it'll work. Fingers crossed. Today we're making olive oil cake though, with a Gimlet cocktail that Alex is going to show us how to do. Alex!
Hello!
Welcome. Hooray! As we adjust our cameras and such per usual.
Yes, because obviously I was like upside down. Or maybe I can do this. No, but then I can't see you because I was sideways.
I was thinking, and as I say this, I have my stack of books holding my camera up. And I think it's about to be precariously not good. Okay, here we go. That way it'll work. This time it'll actually work. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna use this, I guess.
Use that angle?
No, because of the contraption that Brad made had me this like vertical like this, but then I can't see you. So
so we're just gonna go with that. Okay. No, that works.
Yeah, we're gonna go with that. Oh, or maybe actually, wait. No. Actually, here we go. Of course, I can turn it.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. Hey, Mary, who is going to field the questions per usual.
Very nice.
Mary,
Great.
Alex, who you've probably seen or not seen.
Seen each other typing comments.
Seen each other typing wise. We're trying to adjust our cameras right now. I don't know if it looks all wonky, but I went ahead and I tried lifting the camera a little bit, but what's going to happen is I think I'm just going to have to shove things like across when I have to show. Okay, yeah, that didn't work.
Yeah, because then it's hard because then you have to show things.
No, it's like, it's my usual camera situation where I don't know if it's showing properly or not. Okay, that's better, sort of, kind of.
Yeah, I can totally see you properly.
Okay, good. I mean, now I'm just like really close to the screen. So I did this terrible thing earlier is I was messing with the camera, and on iPhones they have like an emergency button, and as I was moving my camera up, I accidentally went ahead and I pressed the emergency button, and it called 911. And it was like on speakerphone, and they were like, a 911 emergency, how can I help you? And we're in the middle of a pandemic, and 911 is for like people to call, like an ambulance to get them to the hospital. I'm like, sorry. It was sad. I was about to hang up, but I remember that it's bad to hang up on 911.
Yeah,
because something is wrong. Yeah. So I was just like, my bad. So Mary's actually going to be baking along with us today. This is good.
It's very exciting.
Okay, well, I think camera angles are going to be as good as they're going to get, and I'll just go ahead and move my bowls around and stuff so that everyone can see.
Yeah, I think I can reach everything. Right? I got all the stuff. Yes. Okay. What are we preheating our oven to?
We're preheating to 325 degrees. We are making olive oil cake, and at the same time today, we're going to have boozy cocktails. Hello, Christine. Welcome to the show. We have boozy cocktails, or cocktail. Maybe I will have more than one cocktail, so it'll be cocktails while we wait for the cake to bake. It's 325 degrees. I'm here with Alex, who I have known since our days in conservatory not too long ago. And I am going to show you the pan that we're using today. You can use a standard loaf pan. This is, I think the recommendation was about a 9-inch. I think this one's about an 8. It should have at least a 3 or 4 inch depth because it's going to rise. So any standard pan is going to do. If you don't want to use this pan, I've been using on occasion because I really like the fact that I can push it up. It's supposed to be for angel food cake.
Ooh.
Because when you make angel food cake, you're supposed to plop it down and these little hooks like help it release.
Yeah.
But I like using it because it's sort of like a mini bundt because it has the hole in the middle. And it's deep enough that I'm not worried about my cake overflowing. So, and it's small enough. What's bad is because it's a lot more in volume, it'll probably take longer for my cake to bake, whether or not I use a loaf pan or not. But it just depends on what you want to do. And actually, if you use a loaf pan, and we'll show everyone later on, you can infuse your cake with syrup and make it even tastier by poking holes in it. So either one. So preheat your oven, 325 degrees. Today we are using flour. Oh my God, I don't have flour. My God. I was like the first ingredient, and I thought to myself, where's my flour? I didn't put it up. Flour, sugar, baking soda, baking powder, salt. We've got 2 eggs in this, milk, olive oil, and you can use any citrus, right, Alex, for this one? I believe the original recipe that we adapted it from used an orange. I have a blood orange today. You can use lemon.
I have a really old orange that's been in the fridge for a long time.
It's gonna be perfect. Like we're using the zest, right? It's fine.
Yeah.
So you can use that, or you can use lemon. Is a really traditional one. I know that in Italian olive oil cake, they use lemon. It goes really well with nuts, and you don't have to put nuts in this at all. I know that we went ahead and mentioned, I think, on the ingredient substitutions that you can use almond flour, or you can use a mix of different flours. Some people haven't been able to find regular AP flour. You can use whole wheat flour. You can use cake flour even if you want it to be a little bit more finer. Bread flour if you're willing to sacrifice the bread flour, which if I were you, don't do it because you can't find bread flour anywhere. And hi, Tiffany. Hello. So Mary is going to fill the comments down below. She's baking with us today. And so she's going to try her best to field comments while she follows along. And I wish I could see the video of that because I think that would actually be hilarious. So that is how that is working. Okay, so we are set our oven, preheated, 325 degrees. We're about to go ahead and grease our pans. Now, what you can do is you can do the aluminum foil method, which is basically lining your pan with aluminum foil and then spraying it with cooking spray. We've done that before, I think, with certain cakes and like brownies and things. Or you can go ahead and butter your pan. That's a traditional way. Butter all the way around your pan to grease it. Or you can do a mix of parchment paper. A lot of people like using parchment paper at the bottom of their pan so it easily lifts. But you're still going to have to butter it. So those are your options today.
Can I use something like this?
Yeah. That's perfectly fine. Go ahead and use that. So you can either, for easy cleanup, you can line it with foil, or you can just use the spray directly on the pan. It's completely up to you. Because I'm going to attempt to use, I'm either going to regret this or think it's the best idea I've ever done. I was thinking about using this Angel food cake pan, which I'm going to have to grease. So I'm going to take out some butter. Oh, there goes my cream cheese. By the way, I just randomly found cream cheese in the back of my fridge, so I'll talk about it. But the idea that I just randomly had some was weird to me because I couldn't remember why I had it. So
you might have bought a party or something.
Now I'll have it with I'll make a cheesecake. I don't know. So usually I grease my pans with just a little bit of butter. But if you're trying to stay away from dairy, which, I guess you have to substitute in this recipe because we're using milk today. You can use plant-based milk for that. But if you're going to do the butter, I would go ahead and I usually use the same stick of butter, that you use for baking. And I just go ahead and butter the entire pan to grease it.
I'm
thinking now whether or not I want to use a loaf pan. You know what? I'm going to use a loaf pan. I'm changing my mind, guys. But this is the great thing about baking, right? As long as the batter fits in the pan, you can use any pan you want. You can use a round cake pan, you can use a glass pan, you can use a square pan. It does not have to be a loaf pan. This is just the traditional way. So I'm going to go ahead and, you went ahead and greased it with olive oil spray?
With like a coconut oil spray because I never use it and I feel like I should just use it up. It's like from an old roommate.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to grease. So I usually, so we're going to do, because I'm doing this now, we're going to do the sugar grease method, which I really enjoy, okay? And everywhere's going to be like, you're just making this worse for you. But you know what? It's going to be delicious, so it's going to be fine. So I'm going to show you how to do it really quick. So this is your standard loaf pan. I'm using butter, and I'm just greasing all the way around it. And you want to be really liberal with your butter, okay? And just like with the cooking spray, just spray a lot. Because the last thing you want is have to fight to get the cake out of the pan. Like, that's the worst. And you have to, sit there with, a spatula and hope you don't break the cake. And then it becomes, this whole thing, unless you're eating it directly from the loaf pan, in which case, then I guess it really doesn't matter. And in this day and age, I mean, honestly, you can just be eating this whole cake for you. And then, who cares? But what I do is I like putting lots of butter. You might not see a lot of the butter on it, but you will see it momentarily when I put some sugar in. There's not a thing as too much butter. You can put as much as you want. So I usually take that butter, and then I take a little bit of just regular granulated sugar. You can be fancy about it and use other things like turbinado, but I'm going to use, can we use oil to oil? Yes. Yes, Tiffany, you can use oil on the pan. Actually, Alex just did. She sprayed her pan with coconut oil.
Yeah, and I feel like if you don't have a spray, when I use oil, sometimes, I don't know if you do this to JulieAnn, but I use like a paper towel to just kind of.
Yep. That's what you can do too. So if you have regular oil, like vegetable oil or whatever at home, just put a little bit, dab it on a paper towel, and then just wipe it like you were wiping down the pan. I take, Melissa just said she makes every cake for her. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like at this point, every cake should be for you. Okay, so I've got the sugar. I've got my grease pan. All you do is you just dump some sugar in. It doesn't matter where you put it. I just dumped it right in. And you just start rotating your pan. And if you've greased, and let's see if you've greased the butter in the pan correctly, see how the sugar is sticking to the side? So it kind of acts in the same way that like flour, when you flour and butter your pan, it's the same thing. But instead, when the cake is rising in the pan when you bake it, it's going to give it a caramelized outside because the sugar is melting into the butter, and it'll make it crunchy on the outside, which I think with loaf cakes especially are really delicious. Like if you're making like your banana nut bread, which I feel like everybody's making, that kind of stuff, it's great. But you don't have to. You can just butter it, honestly. Or you can just, if you want to be a little bit extra about it, you can go ahead and use flour. But I like using, like I said, sugar. And you just literally rotate it around until the sugar crystals, I put a lot of sugar in here, until the sugar crystals stop sticking to the pan. And then you're good. And then we're started. And then if there's too much sugar, you can tap it out, which I'm going to do a little bit because I put a lot. But at the end of the day, it's just going to look like this, right? It doesn't have to coat the entire pan, but enough. All right. So now our pan is prepared. Alex has already prepared hers because she's way ahead of me, and she's used coconut oil spray on her pan. And again, you can use parchment paper if you want to as well, and just cut it out to the shape of the pan. Some people like putting a little bit more as an overhang because then they can lift the cake directly from the pan. So whatever you're comfortable with. That's what you're doing today. So here's the pan. It's prepared. Our oven is preheated to 325. We're going to start with our dry ingredients today. So, like I said before, you could be using all-purpose flour in this recipe. You can be using a whole mix of different flours. If you have whole wheat flour, cake flour, don't use the bread flour. I mentioned bread flour before, but I'm going to say don't do it because I know what bread flour is right now. You can't get it anywhere, so just don't do it. But if that's all you've got, then don't listen to me. Use bread flour. I'm going to go ahead and use AP flour, and I'm going to mix in some whole wheat flour. So it's going to be secretly healthy for me. I'll put that in quotation marks. Healthy. We're about to put a whole bunch of sugar in it, so, you know.
Well, you already have sugar in your pan, JulieAnn.
I already sugared the pan. I don't know. So it's 1.5 cups. Again, you can use the spoon method. Spoon your flour into your measuring cup. Yep, dry measuring cup, because it will be a lot more accurate, especially if you don't have a scale. Most pastry chefs, when they're making things in bakeries and things like that, have scales, and they don't use cup measurements. They're using like actual grams or ounces and things like that. So you can't really see it, but I'm going to show you sort of kind of how I'm just like spooning my flour. I just made a mess. I'm always dropping flour in my kitchen. And then you just level off with a spoon. I just usually, or a knife or the back of a spoon, just so that it's even and it should be flat. So it's 1.5 cups. So here's 1/2 cup. I'm dumping that in. I'm going to do another 1/2 cup of white, and then I'm going to bust out some whole wheat to make myself feel better about putting sugar in my pan.
I'm using whole wheat pastry flour.
Ooh, that's going to make your crumb a little bit finer, which I think is going to be delicious. And I'm going to grab some whole wheat. And again, for anybody that just joined, Mary, who usually fields our comments, is baking with us today. So she's going to try to look at comments and bake and watch us at the same time, which I feel like is going to be a circus act. But I welcome it. So we're here. I've leveled off. This is 1/2 cup of just whole wheat flour. I'm dumping that in. Okay. I'm I'm trying to clean my kitchen as I go, but I usually get flour all over me, so. Okay. So what is the difference between cake flour and bread flour? Good question. So it's just the way that it's milled, basically. And this is the part where Mary can Google correct me, because I'm just going to start spouting off information that is in the top of my head. But basically, cake flour is a really fine flour. So right now, Alex is using pastry flour, which is kind of in that same family. It's going to be ground down just a little bit finer. So when it bakes, it's going to be a little bit more of a tender, they call it tender crumb. So cake flour, the reason why you want to specifically put in cakes is because everyone likes light, airy cakes. You don't like those dense, heavy cakes. And bread flour will be the opposite for you, right? It's a type of flour that will help you create more gluten, which is what you want for your breads, and it'll make it heavier. So that's the only difference. Sometimes people like mixing bread flour and regular AP flour. They do that with chocolate chip cookies sometimes, because you kind of get a mix of like that chewy cookie with a denser cookie. So if you have bread flour at home, it's totally fine to use it here because we are making like a loaf cake. It's just going to be a little bit denser. It probably won't be as tender, is like the word that I keep on using, as if we're using regular flour, but it's going to be equally as delicious. And I bet you're not even going to notice, because usually the only time you'd really notice is if you're making actual bread, right? So hopefully that answered the question. Thank you, Mary. Elastic and chewy. Thank you. That was the word I wanted to use instead of tender. So I've got flour, 1.5 cups in my bowl today. I'm adding a cup of sugar. Now, the problem with adding a whole cup of sugar, you can use a whole cup of sugar. We had a conversation about sugar adding, I think, a while back, and I told you guys that I don't like things super, super sweet in recipes. So sometimes I kind of taper off the sugar. I don't put like half the sugar, but I'll go ahead and go a little bit less than a cup. So it'll be like anywhere between 3/4 and a cup, just for my own purposes. But you don't have to do that. Actually, using the entire cup is going to be great because it's going to, like I said, caramelize into your cake, and it's also going to help it rise. So that's why I say if you're going to skim it off the top, but don't be crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and do.
Can you, JulieAnn, can you mix sugars here for this cake? Can you mix sugars, like regular sugar and like sugar or something?
Yeah, so in this cake, I made
sugars.
You can mix sugars. You can mix brown sugar if you've got brown sugar. You can mix white sugar. The reason why you wouldn't use those sugars, and I think in this recipe why they say to use white sugar, is because the brown sugars and coconut palm sugar will color your cake a little bit because it's brown, right? So coconut palm sugar is definitely darker than regular brown sugar. If you've got light brown sugar, that would be good to use too. But remember that sugar, brown sugars especially, are basically sugar they've mixed with molasses. So it's going to have more of a depth of flavor. It's going to be a little bit more caramely, and it will color your cakes a little bit more. The white sugar is not going to do that. It's going to level the sweetness, and because it's a finer granule, it'll mix in a little bit better. But if you don't have regular white sugar on hand, using brown sugar or coconut palm sugar is perfectly fine. And if you want a low glycemic option, coconut palm sugar, you can totally use 1-for-1. So that's a great option to use. And actually, darker the taste, there's nothing too different about it. Coconut palm sugar doesn't impart some sort of strange coconut flavor into your cakes, but if it did, wouldn't it be kind of delicious? So I'm doing 3/4, a little bit more, a cup of sugar. I'm supposed to be doing a cup of sugar. I'm going to do a little bit less than a cup, like a smidge. And I think we lost Alex, who I'm going to get back in. Okay. All right. So I've already just put half a cup. This is 3/4 cups. And I'm going to put so I'm using a 1/4 cup right now. Honestly, I'm just putting that much less. Like, that's not a lot. You know, it's probably like not even 1/8 of a cup. But it makes me feel better about it. And it's like, so I'm going to do that. But again, you should be using a cup of sugar in general. And again, if you feel like you need it to be a little bit less sweet for your personal preferences, I recommend you could probably skim off a little bit at the top, about 1/8 of a cup off of it if you feel like it, and it should be fine. So lonely. Mary, stop. I know, but I was lonely. I was lonely when we lost Alex. I was talking to myself. All right. So we've got sugar. We're going to use our baking soda and our baking powder. So I've got my teaspoons here, and I'm going to grab my 1/2 teaspoon measuring. We're going to do baking soda. I think I lost Alex again, guys. You're just gonna get lots of me today. So half a teaspoon, as you can see, my bowl. I'm gonna put in half a teaspoon of baking soda. Oh, there's Alex again. Okay. All right. And then we're gonna get another half a teaspoon of baking powder. And again, I just like level off with my finger. You don't have to be so exact about it. Okay.
We did
Hopefully
so well.
Been washing their hair. Oh no!
We didn't. Can you hear me, JulieAnn?
I can hear you. I can hear you, Alex. I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. We did. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. We just did baking soda,
What
baking
do we
powder.
do?
Oh, we want sugar, baking soda, baking powder. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Is baking soda, baking powder with both?
Half a teaspoon.
Half a teaspoon.
Half a teaspoon. Yep. And then half a teaspoon baking soda, half a teaspoon baking powder, and a quarter teaspoon salt. I almost put half a teaspoon salt. My gosh, I was gonna be making it really salty. I think sometimes though, if you put a little bit more salt, it's not too bad. But again, I just put less sugar, so if I overdo the salt, that's not gonna be good for me. So a quarter teaspoon salt. Okay, and then I'm just gonna take the same spoon I was using to level off, you know, my ingredients earlier, and I'm just gonna give it a quick mix. That's just so that it kind of incorporates in itself. Okay. That's it. Like, you don't have to be exact about it. You can just, like, you know, give it a little bit of a whisk. It should be good. Okay. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to get our liquid ingredients together. So you can use another separate bowl, or actually today I'm going to use my liquid measuring cup as a bowl because I don't want to do lots of dishes and I'm lazy. Yes. And it's easy to pour. But you can also use another bowl. Don't feel like you have to use a liquid measuring cup. But I'm using my handy dandy liquid measuring cup. And because I'm using the measuring cup first, I'm going to pour the milk first because we're going to have to level off the milk. So I'm going to go ahead and put, it's 3/4 cup of milk into the measuring cup. If you don't have milk, you can use the oat milk. It's a great thing to go ahead and substitute in. You can also use, which if that's the vegan option, you can also use yogurt or sour cream, which will actually give it a little bit of a finer crumb. I like using all these weird finer, you know, tenderized crumbs cake. And actually I have this really great, and I think we talked about it last time when Melissa was on, we made peanut butter and jelly cake, how you can substitute yogurt into your cake. And I love putting yogurt into my cakes. The thing with putting yogurt in your cake is that it's a little thicker than if you use regular liquid milks. So I tend to use the yogurt and then add a little bit of milk to kind of liquefy it a little bit more. Because you're going to find out that when you mix the cake, it's going to be a thicker batter than if you used just milk. So if you're using milk, though, plain milk is fine. Alex just used a really great oat milk. If you were here last week, if maybe you made your own oat milk because you're fancy, like my friend Drea last week, but we have oat milk.
We have homemade oat milk too. Brad always makes it.
Oh, did he? Oh.
I prefer the store-bought most of the time.
Don't tell him that. Quiet. He doesn't know that you just said that. You can also use whole milk. I'm using a little bit of whole milk. I'm going to go ahead and use this yogurt. It's 3/4 cup. Because I'm using yogurt, I'm going to actually use a dry measuring cup to level off. All these measuring cups, JulieAnn, making a mess. And I'm going to do...
Did you say that you use the same amount of yogurt? Like the
you do, but I would also add...
use with yogurt?
I would use the same amount of yogurt or sour cream. Do not use Greek yogurt. It has to be regular plain yogurt. Like this is regular plain. This is actually a whole milk yogurt with cream on top. Because why not? But you can use like 2%. It's fine. Yogurt is much thicker than the regular liquid that we're putting in. So if you're going to use yogurt, if you've got any other kind of like milk on hand, like I've got this whole milk or even the plant-based milk, I would put like a tablespoon of liquid on top of that and mix it just to make it a little bit more liquidy. Because, and I'll show you as I dig in this yogurt. And actually, if you mix it enough, it might liquefy itself. See how thick it is? And we're going to mix that in the cake, and this is replacing liquid, right? And that's not going to be the same kind of texture. So, and I'm just dump this right in. I'm going to do the same amount though, 3/4 cup, but I'm using my dry measuring cup to put it in. You can just use a straight liquid, that's fine. And I'm only going to put a little bit of liquid in too because of the fact that I just said it's a little thick, and it helps emulsify it so it's easier to blend in. You don't have to do that though. For like, people are like, the whole reason I'm using yogurt is because I don't have milk. Now you're telling me, JulieAnn, to put milk in it. You don't have to do that. You can just use plain yogurt like this. Just mix it up so that way it's not so thick. I'm going to add, because I talked about it, I'm just going to add a splash. And when I say splash, like about a tablespoon of like regular whole milk into it, just to give it a little bit of liquid and to give it a little bit. So now, and I'll show you guys what the difference is now. Now it's a little bit liquidy, right? It's not as thick.
Yeah.
So, but you don't have to do that. I'm just being extra. That's my favorite word. I'm just being extra. So, if not, 3/4 cup, any milk, plant-based or regular milk. On top of that, we're going to go ahead and add a 1/2 cup of olive oil. Any olive oil will do. Just make sure it's a mild tasting olive oil. I'm just using the regular kind of brand of olive oil that I use for cooking. This is an extra virgin cold pressed olive oil. If you've got fancy flavored olive oils, now is the time, guys. Use them. Why not? But we're putting 1/2 cup. So I'm just putting my dry measuring cup to go ahead and add into my liquid. A lot of olive oil. 1/2 cup of olive oil. And the reason why we're using this much olive oil is because there's no butter in this cake, which means that all your fats is coming from the olive oil, right? And that's what's going to help the cake rise. And I'm going to take my handy dandy whisk. They make a mess all over my table. I'm just going to mix that together. Again, this is the part where like mixing things a lot is not going to hurt your cake. Usually what happens is when I talk about over mixing, it's usually when you're adding in the flour. So mix that in, and then let's grab our eggs. We're using 2 eggs. I'm taking mine out cold from the fridge, which is probably my bad, because I forgot to take them out earlier. They can be room temp. A lot of people like it room temp because when you're separating out eggs, it's easier for the yolk and the white to separate. And actually, we're going to do a method that we did not talk about in the recipe, but I was telling Alex about. You can do one of 2 things with your eggs. You can crack your eggs. I like cracking them in separate bowls, again, because of the fact if you get eggshell in it, you can save the egg by taking the eggshell out before you incorporate it into your mixture. And that is a great thing because the number of times I've accidentally cracked an egg and eggshell went all over the place is more times than I need. And so I use a separate container. So you can make it easier in your life, and you can crack your eggs, put both of them into your measuring cup or your bowl of liquids and mix that all up. Or you can do what I'm about to do, which is I'm going to separate my eggs, yolks and egg whites, okay? Because I'm going to mix my egg whites separately to incorporate air. We're going to make fluffy egg whites like a meringue, kind of the same way that you do in macarons, to incorporate air into your cake. And this is going to give it more of a lift, and it's going to be less dense than if you don't do it, okay? But it's going to be, if you don't do this, like I said, the original recipe is fine. You can just incorporate the eggs and mix them together. Nothing bad is going to happen, right? They're just going to, it's going to be delicious. The only difference between this method and that method is that because we're going to fold in the egg whites, it's going to incorporate air, and it's just going to rise a little bit higher. But let's try it, yeah? So I'm going to go ahead and take, you need 2 separate containers for this because I'm going to just take a random, I have like a random plastic takeout bowl that I'm going to use, but I have another container. Separate out your eggs. The easiest way to do this, and let me see if I can show you my messy countertop. This is very messy, guys. I'm going to show you. So this is my egg white bowl, which I don't think you can see. Aha, there we go. That's my egg white bowl, and then this is going to be my regular yolk bowl, okay? I like cracking directly on the counter, one or 2 times. My egg is cold, so it should drop out pretty easy. I'm going to put the egg whites in the larger bowl, and I'm just going to let it drop, okay? you can go ahead and separate it out by flipping this egg and putting it into the other egg. And see how all the white just dropped? Same thing. Drop it.
Yeah, I already just dropped my egg yolk into the egg.
That's okay.
What? Can I get that?
You can save it. You might be able to scoop out some of the egg yolk, and this is why doing the eggshell method is great. You can go ahead and scoop out your egg yolk with the eggshell, unless it's really.
Well, I already threw it away, but I'm gonna try and scoop it out with a spoon.
All right. Usually, when your egg is cold, the yolks.
Ooh, look, I got it.
Did you do it? Oh, good. They separate it out easier. It would be so unhygienic and just like dump this into my trash can. I was about to just leave it on my countertop, but I was like, oh no, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna crack this next one just once, and I'm just gonna let it crack open. And it's okay if it filters through your fingers. Another easy way to do this is to use your fingers and let the whites go through your fingers. But I like keeping it in the eggshell because I feel like it's easier and it's less messy. I say that as egg whites all over my hand. And then I just keep on dumping back and forth until all the egg whites are gone. Ooh, there's a little bit. And then I just take the regular yolk and I just dump it separately into the bowl. And then I'm gonna wash my hands because I just got a whole bunch of egg all over my hands, guys. So there you go. We're separating egg whites. So now you've got your egg yolks that you can just dump directly into your liquid measuring cup or your bowl of liquids, okay? And you can mix that in. I'm just giving it a really quick stir. Again, you don't have to be so thorough about it. I just dumped the eggs, just giving it a mix. And then now you have your egg whites. If you have an electric mixer, a hand mixer, this will come in really handy, or you have a stand mixer. You're gonna use that to beat your egg whites, okay? We are gonna look for, it's gonna get foamy at first, and then it's gonna get stiff to the point where it's gonna be so stiff, you'll be able to take this whole container and dump it upside down and nothing will plop out because your meringue is like stiff enough. So I've actually got a hand mixer. I think it's better because it gives you a little bit more control. But if you don't have a hand mixer and you just have a regular whisk or a fork, just start whisking of elbow grease, but it'll be the same thing, right? So either you're using your arms or you're using an electric mixer. And I have an electric mixer handy dandy, and I'm just gonna put it on high. Yeah, that's Alex. Okay. I'm just gonna show you the consistency here. See how it's foaming up, you guys? My eggs are just foaming up right now. It's just foaming. Like it's just really, really foamy. You see? Keep going.
I'm freezing.
You want to keep going. Actually, I'll put this off so you can hear me. You want to keep going until you see small peaks form in your egg white. I have flour all over my counter, you guys. It's crazy. Okay, I'm going to stop and check really quick. Oh, Alex. Okay, there we go. I am too extra, Mary, you're right. So see how my eggs, the lighting's terrible, my eggs, stiff peaks. The quickest method to test to see is if you flip out your egg whites, they're stiff, they won't move. See, egg whites flip. Tiffany, you don't have to whip your egg whites. Just dump your eggs straight in.
I decided not to either because I kept falling out again.
There you go. Alex didn't even do it. She didn't even do her egg whites. So I am being extra. I'm the only one being extra. Okay.
I kept losing my connection.
That's okay. here we go. So we're not too far behind. We basically put in our eggs. So you've either done what I've done, which is mix egg whites and be extra, or you can do the regular way. And Alex just did that. She went ahead and just dropped her eggs. And yes, Mary, I was being extra. So Alex did it the regular way. So we're gonna go ahead and take our liquid and we're gonna dump it into our, oh, actually we forgot the peel. My bad. Take your peel of your citrus. So I have a microplane, a grater. If you don't have a microplane, you can use, and I kid you not, if you've got a cheese grater, a box grater, use it. You can use it. That's fine. Because all you're trying to do is you're trying to get the zest of the citrus. And the reason why is because the zest of the citrus is where all the flavor is, right? That's where all the scent is, like the essential oil of the orange, especially in oranges. Like when you peel it, did you ever notice like your fingers just smell like the orange as soon as you peel it? Because it's the zest, right? It's the zest of the orange. So we're gonna do this. It's about, I believe it's 2 teaspoons of grated peel. You can eyeball it. 2 teaspoons is about the whole orange. That's about 2 teaspoons. If you're using lemon, same thing, whole lemon. Microplane, you can use lemon, Tiffany, totally use lemon. Lemon is actually delicious in it. I'm using this orange because I randomly have this blood orange in my fridge and I thought it would be tasty. But you can use lemon. And Mary's using lemon too. So let's go. So you're basically just gonna grate it. You don't want, the way to grate peel is basically see how it's not completely going white yet. You don't want it to go all the way white when you're grating. Because if you go all the way white, then you're gonna get some of the non-peel in and it's gonna get sour. So just peel. This olive oil cake, delicious with lemon, delicious. You probably could try to even grapefruit even. I haven't even tried that. That could probably be really good as well. Any citrus. I don't know if I decided like if lime would work out, but it probably would. It would give it a nice kind of different taste, right? I feel like I'm getting an arm workout doing this. I know, Mary, for some reason I have an abundance of oranges. I think it's because I've been trying to get my vitamin C in. We're still grading, Alex, so you've missed nothing.
I don't know what keeps happening. I keep losing action. It's really annoying.
You know what it might be, and I had this conversation with Drea like last week. A lot of people are using, because we're all at home right now, a lot of people are using like Instagram Live, and I bet you were like, it's over-circuited. So I wouldn't, it's okay if we're having technical difficulties. Maybe. Okay. And I'm just putting that into like, you can either put in the liquid or the dry, it's all going in the same place. I just put it in my dry bowl, but you can do it either. This is pretty good. Again, you just don't want it to get past into the white of the, oh, be careful and don't break yourself. Oh my God, I almost got my finger. Okay, and then I just like tapping the microplane on my bowl because I feel like it collects everything. So I'm just gonna do a little tap just to let it go out. All right, now we can add our liquids. This is very exciting. Okay, so I'm using a whisk. You can use a fork. Just mix it all up, except the egg whites. If you've done me, if you have not done me, we're putting the whole thing in. So I like making a well into my bowl. You don't have to. But I like putting a little bit of a hole, and I'll show you as I get my spatula. I like putting a little bit of a hole in the center, just so that it doesn't, I can kind of control the incorporation of the wet and the dry. You don't have to. You can just dump it straight in. And then just dump in the liquid. I have my spatula handy because I'm going to grab it to get all the liquid out of my liquid measuring cup. Perfect. This is the part where if you have just used your eggs whole, mix it in, mix in your liquid. Okay. So we're just mixing. I don't know why I'm using my spatula. I'm like having problems here. Whisk. Whisk would be the right tool to use, or a fork. You can use the spatula, wooden spoon, whatever you've got these days. You don't have to gather crazy tools. And you want to just go ahead and mix it until you don't see any flour left, okay? This is the point where I said overmixing is the problem. The overmix happens when you mix it past the point of flour. If it's pretty incorporated, and I'll show you my bowl. Mine's pretty incorporated, that's good, right? There's a little bit of pockets of flour, but we can grab that with a spatula. Now, if you were using the egg white method, you can just plop your entire thing of egg whites, and I'll show everybody my messy countertop and my egg white situation. So, there you go. I just took my egg whites, and I'm just going to go ahead and fold in my egg whites like so. And the reason why is because I'm just incorporating the air, and you don't want to, like I said, overmix. And we don't want to kill the air that we made with the egg whites. So I'm just going to fold it in. But if you, again, if you didn't use the egg whites and you just done the egg, you probably have your mixture all ready to go into the pan. So grab your prepared pan. We're going to stick this thing in the oven. So again, I usually fold until I don't see any white streaks. And I'm trying not to overmix my batter. There we go, done. Okay. So let's get our loaf pans. Oh my God, you know what I forgot, guys? I forgot to say that as an option, you could have added vanilla, or you could add amaretto, like this, into your batter with all the liquids. I suppose it's technically not too late. I'm gonna go ahead, because as Mary says, I'm being extra. I'm gonna put a tablespoon of amaretto in this because why not? I'm gonna kill all the air that I've just incorporated into my, I'm gonna add some amaretto. The amaretto and the vanilla is optional. You don't have to add it at all. It's just for, like, you know, taste. So I just added some amaretto. Ooh, smells liqueur-like. Congratulations, people that are gonna eat this, aka me. I'm gonna have a little bit of booze in my life. All right.
I'm gonna plop this in the oven.
Yes. When you've got it in your pan, just pop it in the oven. It's gonna go in there anywhere from about 50 to 60 minutes. I would say check it around the 45-minute mark just to see. And I am taking this all out. Okay, guys, I like tapping my pan on the counter just to level everything off, like twice. And then take my pan and I'm putting it in the oven. And I'm gonna wash my hands because I have batter all over it. I'm gonna take all my crazy tools that I have used that nobody else was using because they were smart about this in their lives. And now they have less things that they have to wash. You guys were much better than I. And that's gonna sit in, like I said, about for 45 minutes. I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna set my timer. I always forget to set my timer, which is very bad, as a bad habit. I hope you guys are not being mean. Set your timer. Again, it's gonna probably, if you put it in a loaf pan, it's dense. The pan itself is voluminous, so it's gonna take a little bit to bake. If you put it in a smaller pan, let's say you only wanted to do half seeds, and you made like half a size, then you wanna go ahead and check your cake a little sooner because you don't have as much cake. So the baking time is going to be less for you. Or if maybe you were super fancy and you made like little cupcakes, or, you know, this batter can go in anything, honestly, with just like pans. But if you're making cupcakes, then 20 minutes, guys. Like, don't go past like 25. To check on it at least. Again, baking times are going to vary based on your ovens, based on where you're located. And I still have not, despite the fact that Ruby 2 weeks ago was talking about her internal temperature with her little temperature gauge in her oven because she didn't trust her oven. Did I do that? No, I did not. I did not get it because, like, I really need to do that because my oven is always a mess. Like, it depends. Like, it takes like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, it's off. Use the bundt pan. It filled less than halfway. Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. It's just not going to rise all the way up in the bundt pan, Tiffany. It's going to go a little bit higher, but it's not going to go too much higher. But that's fine because this cake isn't supposed to rise in a crazy amount. Cook at 325. I would check it at about the same amount of time. Check it around 45 to 50 minutes, and then add about 5 minutes every single time after that, just so that way you can make sure it's not overdone, because it goes really quick from being underdone to overdone really fast. And then all of a sudden you'll have like burnt, tough cake, and you just put in all that work, guys, and you wanted to have a treat, and you don't want to like do these kinds of things. So, all right, I'm putting all my stuff away, and while I'm putting all my stuff away, I think, Alex, this is very exciting for us because
yes,
a few weeks ago when Melissa was on, hi Melissa, who is on as well right now, she went ahead and was drinking the most fabulous sparkling rosé, and it sparked this conversation with us about, here we are waiting for all these things to make happen, and why shouldn't we be drinking while we're doing that? And it just so happens that Alex has a history of knowing how to make cocktails, and she is with us, and she's going to show us how to make a gimlet. And while she does that, we're also going to be making a simple syrup to go on top of this cake. And you don't have to do that. You can just dust it with powdered sugar, just serve it plain. But I like putting a little bit of something, as Mary would say, I'm being extra on top of my cake. So, while that is all going, I'm going to dump all this in my sink.
we can probably, JulieAnn, we can probably make the simple syrup first.
You want to make the simple syrup first, Alex?
Because if people are gonna, if people are watching are gonna make a cocktail, they're gonna need it. So it's gonna have to cool down a bit. So I would recommend making a small amount of it. But if you want, obviously, to put some on the cake, then you want to make a bigger amount. Because it does last in the fridge for about 2 to 3 weeks. But I wouldn't leave it for much longer. You can see it go funky otherwise. So I wouldn't make like I wouldn't make a cup of it if you're gonna have 1 or 2 cocktails. Because you're typically going to use a 3/4 of an ounce or an ounce for a margarita or a gimlet or any cocktail. So you don't want to go too crazy if you're not going to use it. And it's super, super easy. Like simple syrup is one of those really, really easy things with many variations. But if you want to make it, you literally just take sugar, regular sugar.
Okay.
Like I'm going to do 1/3 of a cup.
And are you putting this on a pan, Alex? You're putting this in a pan?
No, I'm actually just gonna use a water kettle.
Oh, that's smart. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, I like this.
But of course, you can also do this in a pan on the stove. You want equal amounts of sugar and equal amounts of water. So I am literally gonna put 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Then I'm gonna boil some water and put 1/3 of a cup of water, and then we're gonna see where that takes us from there.
All right, awesome. And then while she's doing that, I can go ahead and explain the simple syrup. We are also using simple syrup for the glaze, okay? You don't have to put a glaze on the olive oil cake. It's an extra option. I find it to be especially delicious because it infuses a lot more citrus flavor into your cake, which is also a little bit why I cut back a little on the sugar, because I knew I was gonna do that. However, it doesn't make it too sweet. It's only going to sweeten the outside. You can also poke holes in your cake, though, and have the syrup go right into your cake and add little pockets of flavor, which is one of those things that you can just do just because. So I have, for our simple syrup, 1/4 cup of sugar. So we can go ahead and, if you wanted to go ahead and make simple syrup, I would actually make the simple syrup that is being made.
Oh yeah, you have one in your recipe. Yes.
Yes.
You have one in the yeah.
So in this case scenario, you could probably double if you wanted to, because we just need the simple syrup portion for the cocktail one, and then one for the cocktail. So if you have about 1/2 cup of you make 1/2 cup of simple syrup, 1/2 cup sugar, 1/2 cup water, and put that together, that will be plenty for the cocktail and for the cake. So that is what I would recommend, about 1/2 cup. You can, and Alex said, you can do it over the stovetop, boil water over the stovetop, and all you do, you mix your sugar and you mix your water at the same time over your stovetop, bring it to a boil, and then turn it off. And that's it. And then you just let it cool down. And then as it cools down, it'll get thicker. And everyone's like, simple syrup, what is simple syrup? If you've ever gone into a Starbucks or a coffee shop and you've ordered iced coffee and they put syrup in it, it's simple syrup. basically, except for different flavored simple syrups and things like that, right? Depending on the flavor you're getting.
Exactly.
It's exactly what it is, just liquid syrup. And the reason why it's good for cocktails and for like coffees and things like that is because it incorporates much faster than if we were just putting crystals. Can you imagine drinking a cocktail too and having like the grittiness of the sugar? You want to impart the sweetness, but
yeah, you only really do that in a caipirinha, like with the when you like muddle sugar, but that's a different kind of sugar then too, and it dissolves better. But yeah, you wouldn't like sugar just doesn't dissolve in a cold drink.
Yeah,
you know, it just.
So this is what we're going to do for everyone that's wanting to make a syrup at home. Half a cup water, half a cup syrup, or half a cup water, half a cup sugar. If you want to make both the cocktail and the syrup for the cake. If you just want to make the syrup for the cake and you are omitting cocktail, then it is a quarter cup of water and a quarter cup of sugar. Okay? And then if you have any random zest left, this is a great opportunity to go ahead and infuse your simple syrup. You can infuse it with zest. You can infuse it with mint. You can infuse it with what are the other things that you can infuse if like probably like a whole bunch of different flavors.
Yeah, I feel like citrus works really well with the cake. With any citrus, probably maybe even I don't know if you could do some nuts. Like weren't you talking about pistachio?
I was talking about pistachio.
I feel like or maybe almond would work really well.
Okay, so I'm going to get I have a hot water kettle because I drink a lot of tea. So mine is boiling. So I'm just going to do it what you said, Alex. And I'm just going to go ahead and put my sugar. So again, half a cup of sugar if you're going to do simple syrup and cake syrup. If you're just doing the cake, then a quarter cup. And it's equal parts water syrup. So I just put half a cup of sugar, and I'm going to put half a cup of boiling water.
And JulieAnn, what do you want to make sure, because you're adding because it's not stirring, it's not like boiling slowly on the stove, you want to give it a really good stir.
Okay.
When you pour the boiling water over your sugar, because you want everything to be dissolved.
All right.
And you can help it out by just like giving it a really good stir. Mine is basically clear already.
Yeah, mine has a little bit of granules. I'm going to go ahead and, actually, it's pretty good already. I was going to say, I might put it on the stove top for just a second, but it looks like it's dissolving.
Yeah, it happens. It goes really quickly when you help it out a bit.
So I put it in a pan just in case, and I'm just mixing it. It's dissolving pretty fast, and I just used boiling water. Keep stirring. Actually, because we have the time, I might put it on the stove for just a second. Just to show you guys how that method works. So I'm going to go ahead and put mine on the stove real quick. I'm going to put it over high heat because of the fact that I wanted to go ahead and reach that boiling point, and then as soon as it boils over and you see that the crystals have completely dissolved, then you stop. And because I have a little bit of zest left over, I'm just going to dump that zest in my simple syrup. Why not? Right?
Yeah, why not?
I thought I had a lot of zest, but I just have a little. So. And actually, I put it over my stovetop, and I really didn't have to because as soon as I started putting my zest on it, my sugar crystals were dissolved. So I'm going to take it off the heat, and I'll show you guys, just like Alex. So I just put...
Ooh, nice. Yeah.
I just put some zest in mine. You don't have to. I'm just doing it because I'm being extra merry. So I'm going to put mine on the stovetop to cool. Perfect. Okay. So you want to show us how to make that?
I made some simple syrup earlier that is already cooled.
Cool. Do this.
So I can show you real quick.
That's me dropping a whole bunch of stuff.
how to make a gimlet or many variations of it. The gimlet is just one of the classics. You can use any clear liquor. Just know that if you're using white rum, it's not a gimlet anymore. It's called a daiquiri then, and I never know how to pronounce that word. Daiquiri.
Daiquiri. Daiquiri?
A
I
daiquiri.
say this, and
Yes,
then everyone back that is watching is like, lies. Complete lies. I want to say daiquiri. Let's go with it.
But so yeah, once you use white rum, it is no longer called a gimlet. Really funny. Mostly have the same specs, but it's no longer a gimlet. So you want to use, I love gin, so I'm going to use some dry gin for this.
Oh, cool.
What you want to do, you only have 3 ingredients. You have a fat, which is the simple syrup. You have an acid or citrus.
Okay.
Preferably it's a lime. Probably every bartender will tell you you can't use anything but a lime. But I don't see such a massive difference always between a lime and lemon, honestly. Don't hate me, world. But I feel like you could probably use a lemon. You don't want to use an orange or a grapefruit or anything that has a much sweeter character once you juice it. If you only have orange juice or grapefruit juice, make a long drink, like make a tall drink with, either a Greyhound, which is just vodka or gin with grapefruit juice on ice, stir it, enjoy it. Make a screwdriver with orange juice, clear liquor, orange juice, ice. Great, there you have it. I would not put that in a gimlet. I would not mix a cocktail with that cocktail. I wouldn't mix it with orange juice or grapefruit juice. I would use fresh citrus. I don't think like the little spritzy things that you can find or like the extract that you can buy in a store, I don't think they substitute well. So if you don't have a fresh fruit, mix yourself any old favorite drink in a glass, where you don't need this fruit.
Question, Alex. I squeezed some lime juice earlier this week because I was making margaritas. Can I use that lime juice that I squeezed before?
How many days ago did you squeeze that?
When was Cinco de Mayo? It was Tuesday.
Tuesday. Try it. Just let me taste a little bit. You will taste it if it's kind of off. Because normally after like three days is kind of the max. But if it's been closed,
very sour.
If it's been closed in the fridge, and it was Tuesday, I think you should be fine. If you haven't had it out,
I'm gonna try it, and then if not, we'll just make another drink.
Yeah, like citrus doesn't last very long unless you. I feel like after a few days, you kind of want to taste it. You want to always store it in the fridge when you make your citrus, and if you have it out a bunch, if you use it a bunch, it's probably not going to last as long. And it's not going to taste like crazy when it's off, but you kind of feel like it's just not right.
Okay.
I have, a little trick if you're using, for your citrus, if you're using one of these.
Oh.
I'm going to show you a trick how to easily have an easier squeeze. If you ever are inclined to get one of these, there's like an orange, a yellow, and a green. Don't get the green one, that's the smallest one. Get the orange or this, so that you can squeeze limes and lemons with it. Don't get the small one.
I think I just have one of these.
Amazing.
The juice out? Okay.
Perfect. And you can also use your hand, obviously. If you are using a squeezy thing, the great thing to do is to make an incision in your fruit right here. I'm going to show you. You go down the long way, and then you cut it in half. That incision is going to make it easy for the fruit to open up in here.
Ooh, okay. Instagram is going to cut us off in a minute because we have gone over. So in a minute, when we go black, we're all going to have to join again.
Okay, great. Perfect. So
but if you've just joined in, Alex is teaching us how to make gimlets because we have put our olive oil cakes in the oven behind me, and we're waiting for it to come out. But while we're waiting, we have made a simple syrup that is cooling, and Alex is about to show us how to do citrus for this gimlet that we're making. So if we get cut off in the next 30 seconds, which we will, because Instagram doesn't like when we chat for too long, and we always chat for too long, You are going to have to log right back in with me and do this all over again, guys, because that's how we roll on the weekends. But hopefully everyone's cake is in the oven, and we're just waiting and chillaxing here with Alex to have a little cocktail hour while we wait and check in our cakes. And honestly, in the next 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, that's how fast the timing has been gone because we chat a long time. See you in a sec. Hi, everybody. We are back. As I said, Instagram cut us off because Chatty Cathy's once again. We have an olive oil cake that is happening in behind me, baking. We have Alex, my good friend Alex from my days at Atlantic Theater School, who is joining us, who is going to show us how to make gimlets with gin, lime, and simple syrup. That's all you need. And in the middle of all of this, if you don't have gin, there goes Alex. If you don't have gin, she did recommend that you can use any clear white liquor like tequila or vodka. Does not recommend rum because then it's a whole other drink.
Well, you can totally use rum. Just be aware, don't call it a gimlet when you put the rum in it.
All right. I too am going to use gin because in the back of my cupboard, I found this. So
oh, wonderful.
I am using this. It has Queen Victoria's face on it.
So actually, I'm going to step back from the citrus for a second because I'm going to just talk about, I will be using a regular shaker today. But you can also, JulieAnn, these.
Yes. Also,
top.
We can also use mason jars, right, Alex?
Yeah, you can use a mason jar. You can use a to-go coffee cup. You can use, honestly, because I was thinking about this, you can use anything that has a seal. You want to be able to shake it so that it doesn't fly around your kitchen. Okay. You want to be able to break the ice because this is not a stir cocktail, shaken one. Okay.
Also, thank you, Mary, for choosing me and Alex versus Ali Wong.
Well, thank you, Mary. Yeah.
It's because you want this drink as much as we do, and we're very excited about it. Okay, cool.
So, and then I will be using a jigger for my measurements, but obviously most people don't have this at home. Use, you can probably, like anything that has ounces on it, like anything that you can find with measurements on it. I think.
Or if you don't, I have a jigger. Let's not talk about why I have one.
Beautiful.
I have one, but if you don't have one of these, also I was just randomly looking at measurement conversions. About an ounce is 2 teaspoons, give or take.
Oh,
so
then you want to.
You can use that.
Oh, that's amazing. So
if you can't find a teaspoon,
awesome.
though,
So
your liquid measuring cup is fine, right? You can use.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a shot glass.
Oh, shot glass
use
would be better.
That's probably around, should be like a 2-ounce shot glass, I feel like.
Okay.
Kind of think about 2 ounces when you look at the size of shot glass. You could use that as well. And then you kind of just have to eyeball it.
Okay.
So we're gonna put our sugar first. So we're gonna have 3/4 of an ounce.
All right.
And you want to.
This was a simple syrup that you made.
You want to hit the line.
I
Exactly.
have cooled down simple syrup on hand. But again, remember, we went ahead and we had simple syrup cooling on the stove. And actually, let me look at it real quick while Alex is checking on that. But this is actually pretty cool now as well. So if you were making simple syrup with Alex and I earlier, which was not even like 10 minutes ago, totally okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got 3/4 of an ounce of the simple that's going to go into my shaker.
Okay.
And then I want a whole ounce of citrus. So I'm going to actually, you know what?
My messy countertop.
I'm gonna squeeze. I'm actually just gonna squeeze. So what you want to do is you just want to, if you have one of these, it's just a very gentle squeeze. You don't, if you have one of the ones that I'm using, you do not want to over squeeze because then it becomes very bitter. You want to just give it a gentle squeeze. If you're using it, by all means, That's how you should do it. If it's a lime, you won't even have to deal with seeds. If you have a lemon, you might have to pick out some seeds, but we'll strain the drink, so the seeds shouldn't be a problem. But just know that there will be seeds. So we're aiming for an ounce. Normally, like a medium-sized lime is about an ounce of juice. So if you don't have a jigger, just use the whole lime, unless it's gigantic or too small. You know. You dump that in the sugar, and then you take a jigger, and you're gonna do a 2-ounce pour of liquor.
Ooh, 2 ounces. Okay. This is very.
If you have a shot glass, use that shot glass.
I'm using my little jigger. I'm being very abundant in my pour. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. We'll find out. Abundant pour. Some gin.
That'll be great. Okay. And then you want to take a good amount of ice and put it in your shaker. I took this out a little too early. It's all melting.
All right. Ice. I've got some ice.
Great. Whole ice is much crushed ice when you want to shake a cocktail.
Whole ice, you said?
Basically, what you're doing is you're crushing ice. So, good amount of ice.
And is that it?
And that's it. And then you seal your shaker.
This is
And
very
then we're going to
exciting.
do a hard shake for about 8 to 10 seconds. You want to shake it hard, but you don't want to. You want to shake it hard. You don't want to. You want to hear the ice break, basically.
I'm just using one hand. Okay.
You're using the shaker, like me, you're going to have to open it because the cold will have sealed it. And I can't even do it.
Ooh, it's definitely my top. It's definitely wanting to. Didn't seal it all the way. It's when I shook it.
Mine, I can't even open mine. So that there goes two parts of the experience. I can't open it. Ow!
I fortunately have a little strainer in my cocktail shaker, which is very exciting. I love my glass right here.
Really amazing. I have a strainer. If you don't have a strainer,
do I need to
use
one already?
a big chef's knife.
Oh.
You want to have it at least that kind of the width of 2 ice cubes, because then you can strain your drink like that. If you don't have a strainer, yeah, you can use a strainer. If you want to be super extra, if you want to be all fancy,
I like it.
then you can double strain.
Oh,
and make it super fancy. You double strain. Okay,
I'm gonna because there's a strainer in mine. I'm going to just pour it because there's ice cubes in it.
Double strain. The double straining will basically help with the removal of little ice. I don't even know what the word is. And you do not need a garnish for this, I think, at all. Ooh, cheers.
Oh my God, Alex! Mine is like this. Well, you know what? I still have a little bit left in here. I can hear some. I have like my small little coop. So cheers, everyone. You're baked with us. We've made gimlets. I'm going to taste test.
Oh, this is really nice.
Ooh, that lime is okay, I think, Alex, because it tastes. There's a nice sourness puckering of my lips, but it's not terrible, crazy. Guys, things that we learned today: gimlet making and olive oil cake.
Delicious.
That was super easy and delicious.
Also, in case somebody is interested in making like drinks at home, like putting fresh mint into the hot water with the sugar while you're making your simple syrup and leave it and then strain it. Oh, I'm gone.
Alex is enjoying her drinks. My timer is just going off. I think she's frozen. I'm not that tipsy. I will be, though, shortly. I didn't mention that I forgot. So we're making syrup also while we're waiting for our cakes. My timer went off, so I'm about to check it in like a minute. We went ahead and made gimlets, but we were also making simple syrup earlier with Alex that we're going to use on top of our cake. So you can go ahead and use pistachios or nuts, and you can go ahead and toast them and actually put them in the same oven, which is baking your cake right now, to get them a little bit toasty. That usually is because the oils will emit from your nuts, and what happens is you'll get a nuttier flavor from your nuts. I know that seems like an oxymoron, nutty or nutted, but it'll get more of a nut flavor from your nuts if you toast your nuts. So my timer went off. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly check my cake, and at the same time, I'm gonna grab some pistachios. So I used an orange, a blood orange, in my cake. Other people have been using lemon. Pistachios or any other kind of nut is an excellent. Hazelnut's also a good choice here to go ahead and put on top. You don't have to do any of those things, though. You don't have to use nuts if you don't want to use nuts at all. So pine nuts would actually be really tasty. Almonds, too. Pine nuts or almonds would be really good. Actually, it's very Italian to use pine nuts. I'm going to grab some pistachios, which I have here in the recesses of my cabinets. I've got some random pistachios that I'm going to go ahead and put like on a baking tray, and I'm just going to toast them. So all you would have to do is, I've got a random regular baking tray, like my 9x13, that has so many cuts in it, overused. I have a random sheet of parchment that I'm just going to put down. And I'm just going to take, it's about a half a cup. I'm going to eyeball it though, of nuts and whole pistachios that I'm going to use, but you can use pine nuts like Mary said, you can use hazelnuts, and I'm just going to dump some onto a sheet pan in just a single layer, okay? So just a single layer like that. And we're gonna go ahead and take these nuts, and in the same place where we're baking our cake, I'm gonna put this on the bottom rack, and I'm gonna let it toast for about 5 minutes, and I'll check on it then. But at the same time, while that's happening, I'm gonna go ahead and take a toothpick to check my cake. So let's go ahead and check it out. My cake looks like it needs a couple minutes.
When did we put it in? Half an hour ago?
40 minutes ago, 45. So my cake, I'm not even going to bring it out because I looked in the oven and it's really jiggly in the middle. And when I say jiggly, the batter is still very loose and it's very wet. The outside is starting to golden brown, but the middle is still very loose, and which means the batter is not cooked. Yeah. So I'm going to actually 10 minutes. I'm going to say 10 minutes.
I feel like we only put it in half an hour ago.
Do you think it was about half an hour ago? I don't know if I trust my timer, but I put it in. I thought I put it for 45, but it could have been just.
Well, if you set your timer, then that is definitely 45.
No, I know, Mary. I really should be wearing an apron. Mary just made a comment about how I always constantly wear black shirts and never wear an apron, and you just see flour all over me as we go through this. And a few weeks ago, bless her heart, Ruby was wearing an apron.
I know.
And I was like, that is so wise. And I have all these aprons right behind me. But every time we do this, I'm like, eventually I'll do that. And then I just don't. So that's okay.
Aprons don't really cover a lot.
But you know what? It covers the parts where you'll get the flour on you. Because I feel like it's like right in this area. Especially when you start mixing things with like the bowls and like the depths of the bowls and such. So I'm just really glad that today we have a cocktail while we wait. And it's really easy. So while we're doing all that, let's chit chat really quick about what we're going to do with the cake. So I recommended for the syrup for the cake, when you take it out, you do not have to put a syrup on the cake. You can serve it exactly the way it is, plain, right? So let it cool down, take it out of the pan, cut it and slice it, and it's perfectly good. You can put a little bit of powdered sugar on top if you feel like you need a little bit of something extra on top of the cake, but again, you don't need that either. Today, I am going to go ahead and put a simple syrup and toasted nuts on top, because one of my favorite loaf cakes is actually from this place called the River Cafe in London, and they make this really delicious olive oil pistachio lemon cake that
sounds
has pistachio in the batter. So they grind a pistachio and put it in the batter. And they also put toasted pistachios on top. And they use a simple syrup that kind of like gets really sticky. So you kind of have like toffee-like pistachios on top. And it's delicious. And you just, when you think you're like, I don't need that, it's fine, I can just have regular cake. Let me tell you, moments to be extra are these. When we're stuck in home, in quarantine, trying to be safe. Like, these are the moments where it's like, why not? Like, if you haven't done it before, try it. Why not? And if you don't, it's totally okay too. Maybe you don't have random nuts lying around.
What I've done before making this cake also is I've just taken the whole orange that obviously was used for zesting, juiced the juice with some confectionery sugar.
Yes.
And made this crazy orange glaze. So you can make quick things to top it off. I mean, but it's super delicious by itself. But if you don't know what to do with this, if you're not going to eat it, you know, use the orange, and some confectionery sugar or the simple syrup. You can probably, I don't know if you could, you probably need some sugar, some confectionery sugar to find it, right?
Actually, Alex, now that you bring that up, we can experiment, because through the magic of Instagram, JulieAnn has previously made a cake that we can take out of the oven. But it's only half size, guys. So, you know, there you go. I'm going to go ahead and show you really quick. Alex made a good point. So there's different ways you can top this cake. You can do the syrup that we're doing. You can go ahead and do this confectioner's sugar icing on top, which is equally delicious. And actually, I want to try that right now. You can also be really crazy. If you want to make candied citrus peels, you can slice like your orange or your lime, dip it in the simple syrup, let it coat, then take it out, stick it on a sheet tray, and just like single file them and let them rest. And that sugar is going to basically candy your peel. And you can take your oranges or your lemons and you can stick it right on top of the cake. So you can do that.
Oh my God.
So I'm going to go ahead and do, Alex just mentioned, because I want to open this, I'm going to cut this blood orange. I'm really excited to cut this blood orange.
Oh yeah, you have a blood orange. So that's
I have a blood orange. So I have this blood orange. Crazy. I'm going to go ahead and do what Alex just mentioned. So, because we're going to have two options for our topping today. I'm going to go ahead and take the juice of this orange, and I'm going to go ahead and mix it with confectioner's sugar, so it becomes a glaze. And that's all you need. And confectioner's sugar is powdered sugar. So powdered sugar and juice. That's it. So let's do that. If I have confectioner's sugar. Oh. So many random
that sugar amazes me. I find it so weird what it can do.
So yeah, like confectioner's sugar is kind of good for, it's almost like a, if you've ever made like cinnamon rolls before and you want like a simple glaze, milk and confectioner's sugar, and that's it. Like, you don't need anything.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's kind of freaky. I mean, what freaks me out sometimes is how much of the powdered sugar you need, depending on what the recipe is. You'll see like it's like 1.5 cups of. But then it makes such little amounts sometimes, but it's always like, it's such an easy little extra stuff. Yeah, like I just love using your extra.
I know, it's great to use. So unlike Alex, I didn't have a juicer. I just had a regular piece like this, and I'm gonna stick it right in the middle of my orange that I have right now. And I'm gonna juice.
And I think those things, and also like just your hands, work really well. I mean, it's like,
yeah, I've also done, you can use your hands and just squeeze really hard, or use like a spoon or something inside the middle just to kind of rotate in.
It's just lemons, you have to be careful because of the seeds, you know, you have to.
I was about to say, I was like, there's seeds everywhere in this.
Oh yeah, they have little ones in the blood orange, right?
Yeah, and I'm being lazy and not stirring it out, and I just took it out with my fingers. I washed my hands. We're good, guys. So,
but also in a glaze, I feel like those little seeds will be fine.
I usually start with about, I would say like a tablespoon of powdered sugar. Start with like a tablespoon, or you can go wild and crazy and use a 1/4 cup, which is probably too much. Actually, let's just use a tablespoon to start with. I will go ahead and, I'm not even use the measuring spoon. I'm just gonna get a regular spoon. Or use a tablespoon like an adult. Like a tablespoon. Like the adult I am. I'm going to use a tablespoon. We're going to see my messy workbench right here.
Ooh, I'm not going to show you what's happening here.
I'm going to just grab a tablespoon. I'm going to dump it straight in. Next, I'm going to get a little mini spatula that I have handy. Please.
Spatulas are some of my favorite things. Do you have a mini one? Oh my God.
I have like a little mini one. See how it's like loose? So that's still loose. So I'm going to go ahead and add another tablespoon of powdered sugar. And the reason why I incorporate that slowly,
Raphael just joined us here.
oh, hey! It's like a little Atlantic reunion we're having. I'm making icing, Raph, while Alex stares at my bowl. I'm going to go one more.
Cocktail.
I'm going to go one more. So and this is the thing what Alex was saying, it's like the more you put it, see how it's starting to incorporate and it's getting a little bit thicker. So this is now my 4th tablespoon.
But yeah, and it's really crazy how much you need, but then it's so delicious.
Yeah. And for those like that need measurements, so 4 tablespoons is about a 1/4 cup, about, give or take. So I was about right when I said maybe start with a 1/4 cup, but I like not over sugaring things. See, now it's starting to get really thick. And it's bad because this is a red bowl and my orange is blood orange. So it's also red. So you're not going to be able to see. So I'm
Mary just said something about you could put granulated sugar into a food processor to make powdered sugar. I wonder though if it would get as fine as you needed.
In a pinch, you can also make your own brown sugar. A lot of people don't know that. If you've got regular granulated sugar and molasses, you can mix it in together and you can make brown sugar.
Because the white sugar is just sugar where the molasses has been taken out, right?
Yeah. No, white sugar is basically yes. And the brown sugar, if you add molasses, it's the regular brown raw sugar. Yeah. See how like now it's getting like much thicker? And what's great about this confectioner sugar icing is that when it dries, it's going to dry onto your cake like frosting. It's going to be so great.
That's great.
So I'm going to add another. So we're going to show you this 2 ways while we're all making cake. I'm going to show you. So, ooh, there we go. So as JulieAnn makes this glaze, this is the regular. Oh, now you can actually see it's a little bit pink.
Oh yeah, it's very nice color actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit drippy still. I like mine a little bit thicker.
Do you want more that it kind of like drops off your spatula slowly?
Yeah, I like it to be a little bit loose because you're going to drizzle it. But at the same time, I don't want it to be too thin because it won't dry thick enough. Now, this is actually pretty good. See, it's still a little bit loose, but it's a little thicker than it was before. Because as it sits and it sets, it is going to get thicker and you're not going to have to worry about it. So this is great, Alex. This is going to be delicious.
That looks really pretty, I have to say. The blood orange is like winning the cake.
It's so pink. I'm trying to decide if I want it to be a little bit thicker. I think that I'm just going to put half of a half tablespoon. I'm not even going to.
Go for it.
Because the bad thing is let's say you put too much sugar or you put too much juice. You would just add more juice. If it's too thick, you add more sugar if it's too thin.
Yeah.
That's it. So this is just, as Alex said, confectioner sugar and juice from the orange that we zested to get into our olive oil cake. And
being sustainable, using everything we have.
And that's just icing. And now you actually haven't wasted the orange, right? I still even have another half orange. If I want to be super fancy about this, all right, let's do. All right, guys. If I want to be super fancy about this, and look at my crazy workbench right now, that's a mess. Here's my really sharp knife. You can go ahead and slice.
Are you gonna candy them?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Ooh, that was a bad slice.
I'm gonna candy my orange.
That was a bad slice. But you know, is there such a thing as a bad slice? It's like half a slice that I've done right here. I'm gonna slice them really thin. I would say probably about 1/4 of an inch, half an inch. You don't want them to be too thick. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut this entire rest of this orange. And even if they don't come out like super circular. Like look at this one. It's kind of droopy and it's like a little bit half on, half off. We can fix that. And also it's delicious when it's imperfect, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to keep on cutting my blood orange because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. Ooh, I'm precariously going to dump my sugar on the floor, I think. Not good. I make such a mess. See, the great thing about this, guys, is you're baking live with Alex and I. There's no, like...
No, I mean,
things are, like, already pre-measured.
Everywhere.
We don't have things that are just magically... I mean, today we will have something that will magically appear because I did make something. So this got to the whites now, and I don't want that. But I do have all these lovely pieces. And what I'm going to do is...
Before you do that, JulieAnn, you know your timer went off.
Oh, yes.
Let's check out cakes.
Ooh, and my nuts are good. Good thing you said something, Alex. I toasted my pistachios. This is my cake.
My cake still has a ways to go.
I have a toothpick. I'm going to check mine.
Mine is like so very gooey.
Ooh, mine's gooey in the middle. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it back in. Probably like another 5 to 10 minutes. But the exciting thing while that's happening is I'm going to show you how to make this glaze. We've got time to make this glaze. So I showed you one method, which was convection of sugar and juice, which is what Alex recommended that you can do. And that's really simple. You can just go ahead and mix those together. Again, start out with, I just use half of my blood orange, the juice of half of my blood orange, and about a quarter cup of sugar, powdered sugar. Then you just add a tablespoon of sugar until you get your desired thickness, right? I also have the simple syrup that we went ahead and we created earlier. So the simple syrup, I put some orange zest in it, correct? I'm going to take this same simple syrup and I'm going to go ahead. I made double because we were making cocktails, which by the way, I need another drink of. Cheers. All right, cheers. So I made double. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take out a quarter cup for syrup for what I need for my my icing, my simple syrup icing. Let me grab another bowl. And I'm just going to take a quarter cup. I've also got random contraptions. Sometimes I wonder like where I get, like when did I get all these things? I've accumulated too much stuff. I need to Maria Kondo my life. So I'm going to take about a quarter cup out of syrup. And I'm just going to stick that aside for now. Because I'm going to use this syrup and I'm going to dunk it all over the cake when it comes out of the oven. So about a quarter cup, give or take. If you want to be a little bit more than that, a third. But if you were making it just specifically for this cake, you probably have a quarter. If you have some left over because you made some simple syrup with Alex earlier and you had about half a cup, then maybe about a third cup, but a quarter cup to a third cup to save. And then the rest of it that I made, because we made additional, because I was using it for the cocktail, I would go ahead and take this, all those lovely oranges, I'm just gonna dump straight into my syrup.
Do I need parchment paper for the tray for the oven?
Oh, I don't think so, because we're not gonna put it in the oven.
Oh, we're just dunking them?
Yeah, we're just gonna dunk them. I think we might have to put it back on the heat, Alex. Some simple
While
syrup.
it's still baking? Yeah,
we're gonna have to put the, so I just put a whole bunch. So my simple syrup was cooled down, right? Traditionally, if you were making candied oranges, you would go ahead and put the sugar, the water, the oranges all in while it was boiling. And you're gonna let it simmer for maybe about 20 to 30 minutes until it's reduced down. Because what's gonna happen is all the sugar that you've put in the syrup is gonna get sucked up by the oranges. So I'm gonna actually put this on the stovetop. We're probably not gonna see the results of this until after the fact because it's gonna be way too long for all of us. But I'm gonna put this back on the stovetop and we're gonna let it sit for about like, I'm gonna bring it up to a boil and then let it simmer for about 20, 30 minutes until it reduces in about half.
Just
stir it every now and then. Just stir it every now and then to make sure it doesn't burn. But you'll notice you can do it for as long as there's liquid in there. But as soon as you start seeing the liquid dissipate and it's completely gone, just turn off your heat. Okay, you don't have to leave it in for the entire amount of time. But I'm guesstimating it'll probably take maybe about 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave that over medium heat, and that's another way, candied orange. There you go. And then what you can do is after, when the cake is out of the oven, you can top your cake with these candied oranges and just like stick them on top for decoration. And you can also eat them because you've candied them and you've basically made them like sugar oranges. And you can eat the entire thing. Doesn't have any more, even the peel, because at that point the peel's so very thin, right? Delicious. So 3 different options. Once again, guys, you had the confectioner sugar icing, you have the simple syrup, and we're going to go ahead and toss some nuts on top, and you have the candied oranges, all from the same cake and all from the same things that you use, and you had enough juice for a drinky. Cheers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the cake that I made earlier. So I went ahead and made a half-size cake. Basically, I put it in the loaf pan and I did what I was telling you guys before. You can go ahead and take your regular loaf-size pan and create the size of pan you need with aluminum foil. Just stuff it over and basically fold it down. So I folded it down and I made the pan a half size. So this is a cake that I made previously. I actually put lemon in this. So now I'm going to infuse way too many flavors into this cake. So this was originally a lemon cake. And remember, I've been making all these juices with like almond and stuff. Like this is going to be intense. I went ahead and I'm going to go ahead and take this icing actually. I haven't decided, like, should we use the simple syrup or should we use the icing? These are so many questions in life. I think I'm going to use this icing that we made. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. All you're going to do with your cake, like honestly, is you are just going to take your icing, and you can be the type of person that spreads the icing all over flat and then just let it sit and it will dry. You're going to have to let it sit for a little bit longer to cool down, but once it's cooled down, the icing will be firm. Or you can be the type of person that just drizzles over the top, depending on like how crazy you want to be. Just because I have like this aluminum foil on top, I'm actually going to just drizzle like this on the top so there's not a lot. And I'm just going to go back and forth. And you don't have to be, this is totally rustic, right? This is not super crazy professional. At the same time, when it dries, when it has like imperfections, that's what makes it nice. You know what I mean? Because it looks like you actually made it and you didn't. And I'm just going back and forth and I'm just drizzling with my spatula even. I haven't even taken out a different tool. I haven't gotten any fancy bags or anything like that. And like, that's it. And then I'm just gonna let it dry. And like I didn't put that in. Look, I actually have a lot of icing left over, so I can use that.
JulieAnn, do you want to wait a little bit for the cake to cool before you put the icing on, or do you put it on?
I would. This cake is been cool because we made it earlier. I made it earlier in the day, so it's completely cold. It's completely cooled down because if it's too hot, the icing is just going to continuously melt. Yeah. Right? So it needs to be cooled down. Now this icing is going to sit there and it's going to set. And when it sets, it'll firm up. So right now it's kind of wet, but when it sets, it will firm up. So I'm just going to leave that alone. And that was just drizzling icing. You can go ahead and, like I said, do anything else. I went ahead and I grabbed some nuts earlier. And I toasted them.
Can I interrupt you real quick, JulieAnn?
Yeah, sure.
So my simple syrup and orange is boiling. Do I then put it down to a simmer?
Yes, put it down to a simmer. Yep. Yes, please. Actually, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Do you put a lid on or do you leave it uncovered?
No, leave it uncovered. You're okay. And yeah, we're just gonna, what it's gonna do is it's just gonna go ahead and as it simmers, it's going to reduce. And then you'll have candied oranges. And what you'll do is after that's all done, you'll lay them out on a single file on a like a cookie sheet or just a regular sheet tray and let them dry. I'll put that in quotation marks, dry. And what's going to end up happening is it's gonna, oh, I hope that cake turned out really well, Tiffany. I know we're all still waiting for ours to come out. Hopefully yours is out of the oven. What's gonna end up happening with the candied oranges is that it's going to dry and crystallize. So it's gonna have like a kind of caramely, I say caramely in a clear kind of word because it's not gonna be brown, but it's gonna caramelize the oranges. So I'm gonna check on my cake again because I forgot to turn on my timer and I think that's been like another 10 minutes. So I'm gonna look. Ooh. This is looking promising, you guys. So because it's a loaf pan, there's mine. Mary's timer went off. I have to get another toothpick.
Mine is done.
Oh, perfect. So I'm going to poke it in 3 places. Mine's done. Mine is done as well. So I'm going to turn off my oven. Now, this is the thing you can do with the simple syrup. You can go ahead and take this and you can poke holes all through the cake. It doesn't matter where you do it, right? Because we're going to pour the syrup on while it's still warm. We don't have to wait for it to cool down to do this part. So I'm going to poke holes everywhere I want to on this cake, just like so. And then I think the more the better. It's almost like tres leches, what we're about to do here. The syrup is going to go ahead and go through the cracks of your cake, and it's going to go ahead and infuse a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I have my simple syrup. I'm going to take my toasted pistachios. I'm going to dump it right into my syrup. I'm going to give it a little bit of a stir. So now I have like pistachios in my syrup. And I'm going to go ahead and take my warm cake. And I honestly, and again, my really messy countertop, guys, that you're going to see. I'm going to go ahead and take my cake that we just took out of the oven. And I'm going to pour that simple syrup and my pistachios all over the cake. Like so. And it doesn't have to be, you can be messy about it. It doesn't have to be super precise. And then I'm just going to move around the pistachios because when it cools down, like the orange that we're candying, they're going to kind of crystallize themselves. And there we go. That's it. And then later, when it cools down, the pistachios are basically going to stick to the top of the cake. And you're going to, when you slice it, they'll be like caramely just in the same way the oranges are going to be. So we have baked an olive oil cake with Alex, who has shown us not only Gimlet, but also another way to make icing while she was with us. Hopefully, all your olive oil cakes are coming out of the oven. I think, Alex, did yours still have a couple more minutes left, you said?
No, it's out. I feel like I should have gotten it out 3 minutes earlier.
Oh, boy. That's okay. It'll probably be all right. Let your cake cool. Do not. Well, you could cut into it and eat it. I mean, I won't stop you. We're living in a quarantine world. But the fact that you've got this cake out of the oven, let it cool down, let it come down to room temperature. If you're doing the icing method that Alex mentioned before that I made with you, do that when the cake is completely cool. Stick it on a wire rack if you've got it. If not, just stick it on like, you know, an oven mitt or, you know, a pot holder and just let it cool down to room temp and you are done. Okay? And you can have a nice cocktail and a slice of cake. Or your third or fourth cocktail and a slice of cake.
Or a glass of wine after this, or a shot.
Exactly. Can I take a screenshot of you guys smiling with the creation? Yes. Here, let me. My oven mitts are going to be in the photo. And I think Alex is coming through with hers, and we will. Ta-da! Okay, I think that's a good enough time for holding, right? Because you can't tell us if you took the photo or not. Although, Tiffany, if you didn't get the... Oh, you have to do it. Okay, you have to do it now. Okay, ready? All right, here we go. Here we go. Ready? I don't know if that was long enough. I hope that was long enough. I hope you got the photo. So. Please send that photo to Alex and I. Also, everybody, as I say always after these things, thank you so much for baking with us. taking time out during this like quarantine life of ours and sitting here as we jabber on in the kitchen, talking nonsense, and sitting with Alex and I making olive oil cake and Gimlet. And I hope you have a fantastic Saturday, and I hope your cakes turn out well. Please tag Alex and I so we can see your creations. Even if you just made a cocktail, I want to see your cocktails, and let us know how it went, okay? So stay safe.
Even if you just squeeze the rest of your orange into some vodka. That's a good cocktail.
It's great.
Great.
So everyone, thank you so much. Enjoy your Saturday. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.